People are all eagerly waiting for the day when mutants finally join the MCU, for real. But what if I told you that the X-Men and their mutant allies have been hidden deep within some of the greatest events, sitting in the sidelines waiting for the right moment to appear, and that moment is Deadpool and Wolverine. But this is just a theory, and theory will only get you so far, so you have been warned. And also a quick spoiler warning for Deadpool and Wolverine: if you haven't seen it yet, what are you even doing? Go watch it right now. And now, for the sake of clarity, from now on I will refer to the main MCU timeline as 616, just to make things easy. So to truly answer this question, we must analyze Wolverine deeply.
Come again.
But not as deeply as Deadpool does. We know from the movie that the X-Men in his universe were killed by an angry mob of humans, and he wasn't there to stop them despite hearing their cries and screams. This guilt is what inspires him to wear the yellow and blue suit that slowly rips apart throughout the movie. We also see that a side effect of this is him getting really drunk and wallowing in his self-pity in bars, until Deadpool arrives to take him out of it to become an anchor being. But he doesn't go without putting up a fight, if you even call that a fight. Now, this so-called fight is what causes a whole lot of problems, but it is also the root of this theory. Since we do see that his metal claws were kind of unleashed in the bar, this is something that is loosely referenced in She-Hulk. Now, if this scene takes place around the time She-Hulk happens, then it all makes sense. Plus, we know from the movie itself that it takes place in 2024, as the scene with Happy Hogan takes place in 2018. So naturally, when there's a 6-year time jump, this places this scene in 2024, provided that this montage is Deadpool also hopping through time as well as the multiverse. This is possible since we do see a 90s version of Wolverine, being the second variant he visits. So by this logic, the two moments would happen roughly around the same point in time. However, later on in the movie, Logan does say he is 200 years old, and people usually round most things, but age isn't the one thing people round. If someone's 37, they say that they're 37. Now obviously when you are 200 years old, it makes sense to round your age, but assuming he isn't, this scene would then most likely be set in the 2030s since Logan was born in 1832. This would also allow enough time for Logan's skin to have decomposed when he gets dug up. But this whole issue with the timeline being in the 2030s will be discussed later on in the video. Disney Plus also puts this movie after the Marvels in the grand MCU timeline, meaning according to Disney Plus, this movie is set in 2027. But then again, 70% of the movie does take place in the void where there isn't an exact point of time as a reference, so it does make sense as to why they put it there. However, pushing these timeline issues aside, we see that She-Hulk does potentially reference this specific fight. Another thing that Logan mentions multiple times throughout the movie is the Avengers. Now this might sound crazy, but I believe the Avengers only exist in the main 616 timeline, because in every other universe we have seen so far, they are either non-existent or there's an equivalent superhero group defending the Earth. Like, we literally hear Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man ask who the Avengers are.
The Avengers! Yeah! That's great! Thank you! What is that?
In 838 we see that it's the Illuminati who fought against Thanos. Though they don't deny the existence of the Avengers, we can assume that they don't exist. Even that universe Monica Rambeau had found herself in seems to only have X-Men. But that is also a universe that we see for about 2 minutes, so by this logic, the Avengers can only exist in the main 616 timeline, perhaps explaining why it's called the Sacred Timeline. Therefore, Wolverine knowing about the Avengers only makes sense because he's in the 616 universe. Now, Deadpool only knows that the Avengers exist because he can break the fourth wall.
The proposal.
But Wolverine can't. But if he could, he would want you to subscribe. But then again, there is one obvious question. If the mutants, like I say, had existed in the 616 timeline the whole time, then why haven't we seen them? And for that, we have the Runes of Kaf-Kal.
The runes of Kaf-Kal.
Oh, it's just a standard spell of forgetting.
The Runes of Kaf-Kal was the spell that we see in Spider-Man No Way Home, that Peter interrupts, which causes the entire multiverse to break. But had it been uninterrupted, everyone in the world would have forgotten Peter is Spider-Man, along with Doctor Strange. So perhaps after the moment where the mutants were all killed, Logan found the Sorcerer Supreme at the time, who might be the Ancient One, to see if she could wipe everyone's knowledge of mutants. That way, no one would remember the hatred humans had for them. And unlike Peter, Logan doesn't interrupt the spell, and it is successful.
Great success.
So only Logan remembers the mutants and their terrible fate. This most likely would have had to have happened before the events of Iron Man, but there is a small chance it happened after, since in a deleted version of the post-credit scene of Iron Man, we hear Nick Fury mention mutants.
As if gamma accidents, radioactive bug bites, and assorted mutants weren't enough.
Though in this he does also mention radioactive bug bites, and Peter is like 4 years old at this point. But either way, the MCU movies that we all saw and loved was affected by the spell. A lot like how in Deadpool and Wolverine, when we see the picture of Tony and Peter, Peter is covered up as a result of the spell at the end of No Way Home. This theory could also go hand in hand with how the MCU might introduce the mutants, since it seems as though the next major saga in the MCU will be the Mutant saga. Currently though, there is one big issue with introducing mutants into the MCU, and that is the age of some of them. People like Logan being 200 years old is fine since, you know, he can regenerate. but Professor X and Magneto would be about 90 to 100 years old. which is an issue since Magneto is traditionally around 70 years old, maybe younger, maybe slightly older. It depends on the story. And they could simply fix this issue by retconning Magneto's Holocaust origin, but that's a fundamental part of the character arc of Magneto, and simply removing it would just ruin his character entirely. However, by keeping them erased and forgotten to mankind could mean that if a reverse House of M style event happens where instead of Scarlet Witch says no more mutants, she says let there be mutants in a potential Scarlet Witch movie, we could see Wanda reinstate mutants for some reason. Then we can have mutants in the 616 universe whose origins are also true to their comic book counterparts. Now remember earlier on in the video when I said that this scene might be in the 2030s, or perhaps this scene takes place in the future of the MCU. Yes, I know, this is a crazy idea once again.
Yeah, I know.
We almost definitely know that the next saga is the Mutant Saga. This will likely culminate in an Avengers vs X-Men style event. This will probably take place around the 2030s in the MCU timeline, provided there are no time skips in Doomsday or Secret Wars. So perhaps the humans that killed the X-Men were probably the Avengers, or angry humans who supported the Avengers during the conflict. This would also explain why Logan has this love-hate relationship with the Avengers throughout the movie. But obviously this means that we won't get the answer for this question for another 10 years or so, at which point who knows what will happen.
Till you're 90.
But it is something that is definitely possible. However, there are issues with this theory, but they can be explained. The first thing is that he says that everyone knows who the Wolverine is. This might just be him being confused and drunk, so just accepts the fact that Wade knows his true identity, since it does seem as though no one else in the bar recognizes him. Because we have seen before when Avengers or superheroes are in public, people do go up and ask for photos. So if no one's asking for Wolverine's photo, or no one calls him the Wolverine directly, it is a bit suspicious. Another issue is the flashback montage where Cassandra Nova reads his mind, and the answer to that is very simple. They just didn't want to film extra scenes with Logan in it because it would have damaged the budget even more, and it was just easier to reuse footage from films that we've already seen because everyone going into this movie would have seen the X-Men movies. This issue also would apply had Logan been from a completely new universe, but do comment below your thoughts and subscribe whilst you're there.